everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming to Clark Atlanta University Art Museum. I'm Danelle Taylor, the director of the Art Museum, and I'm so pleased we have a full house for what should promise to be an engaging and interesting conversation with the marvelous, the fantastic, I'm going to have to say magical too, Shanequa Gay, and our curator, Clark Brown of the museum. So I think we're in for a wonderful, enlightening conversation. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. And like Dr. Taylor said, welcome to the Clark Atlanta University Art Museum. Again, my name is Clark Brown. I'm the curator here at the museum. Thank you all so much for coming and joining us. And for those of you who it's your first time seeing the exhibition, welcome to Ancestral Mirrors. Just a couple things of layout. I'll say I will ask Shanequa a few questions, and then after that, we'll go into a Q&A from you all. So I know those of you who have burning questions will have the opportunity to ask them. All right. So I'm just going to briefly read Shanequa's bio of many of her numerous accomplishments. So Shanequa Gay is a storyteller born and raised in Georgia, whose work draws on the environment and spiritual symbolism of the American South. Blending motifs from regional life, she explores identity, culture, and power through storytelling, highlighting formidable female figures and intergenerational relationships. Her practice, encompassing installations, paintings, performance, photography, video, and monumental sculptures, challenges dominant narratives, reclaims space through personal memory and mythology, and creates immersive environments that invite reflection on self and belonging. Gay's recent exhibitions include For Women at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston in 2024, the Atlanta Biennial, Atlanta Contemporary, Le Monde Bossal, if I'm saying that correctly, in Montreal, Canada. Adorn McCall Center for the Arts and Innovation in Charlotte, and Holding Space for Nobility at the Ackland Museum at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Gay exhibits her works and procures residencies within the United States, Europe, Japan, and South Africa. She is a Do-Good Fellow recipient, an Emory University Arts and Social Justice Fellow, and a Hudgens Prize finalist. Gay was a visual arts artist in residence at Oglethorpe University in 2022 to 2023, and the recipient of the Radcliffe Bailey Award for Excellence in Visual Art in 2023, and is one of 5 Georgia Women to Watch selected by the Georgia Committee of the National Museum of Women in the Arts in 2023. Welcome, Shanequa Gay. Thank you. All right, so during the inception of this exhibit, you really started with wanting to create this film, Ancestral Mirrors. And I just wanted to ask why you really chose to create this film as the focal point that we used to kind of build this exhibition upon. And why was it important to choose film as the medium to portray your ancestral lineage? Because if most of you don't know, most of the women in this film were Shanequa's family members.
Yeah. I think expansion was really important, or is continually important in my body of work. Looking for new mediums, right? So throughout this exhibition, you see that I play with probably 50 million mediums. And so it is a way for me to speak in a new language. I have done documentary works. That is something that was exhibited at Museum of Fine Arts Boston last year. But I have not been in conversation and collaboration with filmmaking, right? So back in 2020, maybe at the bottom of 2020, Dr. Artsit had reached out for us to work together, but it was COVID and I don't want to be outside. And so it kept in the back of my mind, and I'm sure his as well, was the opportunity to be able to work together. And so when I was like pitching and proposing this exhibition to you all, I really wanted the opportunity to move from a static space to the film. And Dr. Artsit like knocked it out the park, right? Yeah, being able to see my family, Southern history, communal space, spirituality. There are so many things that are hit within this film that are the makeup, I believe, the entirety of my body of work as a whole. Yeah.
So within this film, you've also created this dinner table that we see here. Those of you can see out.
Get out the
back
way.
a little bit. You've created this dinner table, which has also resonated with a lot of people that have come through this exhibit that I've talked to, spoken to someone who said this table reminds me of my grandmother's table. Or for me, like when I go home for the holidays to spend time with everyone, this is a similar setup that you would see. Why did you create this table to be kind of the gathering space? And also, can you talk about the different objects that you have placed on this table and what they represent?
So for me, and I'm sure the reason it resonates with other people, my first understanding of self happened at the dinner table, right? Being fed from my mother to my grandmothers to my father, just from my family, I had a clear understanding that I was Southern, that I was Black, that I was woman, and that tradition was valued, right? And so when I would look at wallpaper, when I would look at table settings, everything had to be just so, or it had to be a certain way. And so I attempted that. I don't know that I did a great job of attempting just so, but also representations of my family and my ways of thinking are at this table. There are black-eyed peas, there are peaches, there were real peaches, I think they rotted. There were florals, and then this kind of self-realization through the toile, right? Toile, what I love about it is that it is a narrative, right? So I can tell this continuous narrative through multiplicity of vignettes. And then within this toile, there is, as well as in the dinner plates, there are watermelon, there are old school Cadillacs, there are buildings, architecture, representations of the South, representations of Atlanta, and all are these kind of modes, or what I would consider portals, as well as like plants as representations of the feminine, people who labor, who work within the yard, within the ground, and then also this kind of language of quote unquote authenticity, African authenticity, which I felt like as a child I continually kind of struggled with. And so it's this continuous language of self, right? Reflections of self.
So, along with this table and the film, you created several other pieces for this exhibition. What led you to choosing the specific materials and colors that you chose for those pieces, like the mud cloth and the hair, and of course, the indigo that you talk so much about?
I feel like blue is a sacred color. Blue is a representation of Black people, right? We can hear it in song, in sound, in skin. And when we're talking about, I think you mentioned the hair. Hair is a representation of impossibility, right? The language of impossibility with Black women. We hear a good bit that Atlanta is not a real place, and it is not. But with that comes, one of the things I'm really fascinated about is the ways in which Black women wear like Rapunzel-like long hair, ridiculously beautiful, long, illustrious weave, and it speaks to me about continuity, eternity. I'm gonna get it out. Yeah, so I'm always looking for ways to create my visual language by using different materials, right? And so I think using the fabric and using the quilts, this is leaning back to the women in my family who are quilters, who are seamstresses. My mother helped me to compile together these new bodies of work with a good bit of labor, right? Labor intense from thinking about craft work, housework, and then thinking about different narratives and placement.
So you also reference your indigenous ancestry within your work. Are you in some ways in community with tribal members or practice traditions that are objectively theirs, and also how does that inform your work?
When I'm thinking about indigenous communities, indigenous means native to a space, right? And so my people are some of the first Moors that came to Hiram, Georgia, which is crazy, right? My grandmothers are Muskogee, Black Seminole, Japanese. Like, I have a multiplicity of backgrounds, but when we're talking about being affiliated to, I guess, specific tribal communities, I feel like that leans toward the language of credibility, right? And so I am kind of careful with stepping into places that may look like strategic essentialism, right? So that I have to have an essence of coming from a specific place. Colonialism kind of traps us in languages of essence, meaning if the essence of who I am is Black, then that also is connected to me being maybe anti-democratic or criminal or questionable, right? As opposed to being affiliated with a universal thought process that we are all from a specific place, and that I can teeter in the language of the indigenous, and I don't have to be affiliated with a specific tribe. My tribe is the Johnsons, my tribe is the Battles, the Gays, the Higgins. I come from a multiplicity of backgrounds and different communities, and those are the tribes that I'm interested in representing and being affiliated with.
So in this exhibition, you included some works that relate to historic neighborhoods and institutions. The piece that's about the Lightning community, and you also talk about your family's connection to Morris Brown College and the John Hope University housing, university homes. Can you speak to the impact that those communities have had on you as you're growing up in this city, in this space, but also the impact of the erasure of some of those spaces, and what are things we can do to make sure we honor those that were displaced from them and find ways to remember them?
There are a lot of places in Atlanta that no longer exist, right? And so the question is, where do the people who used to live here go, right? And so when we're talking about the language of erasure, there is something I find to be, about to say bothersome, but I'll use a prettier word like problematic, that we don't tether ourselves to space. We don't value space, and we don't necessarily value memory, right? Or the spaces that are connected to the city of Atlanta, right? So I have done a good bit of travel, as I'm sure many other people in the audience have. And so when you go to other countries, we'll say like Italy, we can't imagine Italy without its chapels, right? And these are places that have been around for hundreds, some places for a millennia, right? And so what does it mean to continue to uproot spaces like the lightning community that used to exist? And we're uprooting it for the sake of sportsmanship, right? For arenas. And then how do we hold place for that? I do my work and I try not to critique what other people do, right? So my work looks like a balance between recognition and memory, right? The language of remembering, the language of tradition, the language of creating images and artwork that are in celebration of the people who are here. I believe in the artworks in the back as well as in this mural, you see a schematic of the Georgia Dome, right? Mm-hmm. And so the schematic, while it represents erasure, it can also represent transportation. It can represent a portal. It can represent entering spaces and possibly quantum possibilities to be able to jump through as spaces of remembrance. Mm-hmm.
So in this exhibit, there are a few works that kind of allude to your relationship with music. That's from, I guess specifically from Atlanta, because Atlanta music has its own culture, it has its own traditions. Can you just speak to the music that you identify with that's kind of influenced some of these works?
All things Atlanta, I identify. I think what is important, and we'll just start with the 21st century, I think what is important is to recognize that the 21st century has sounded like the South for the past 20 years, right? That's a big thing to say when you're talking about hip hop, right? But we have had the ball for about 20 plus years, right? And so when you're talking about the sound of the 21st century, it has sounded like trap music, right? It sounded like all kinds of beats and hymns and hymnals. I believe my work resonates a kind of rhythm to it, right? I feel like my work has a beat. I'm trying not to say outcast. Say outcast, all right. Andre 3000! Right. Only because they are amazing storytellers, right? And so if anything else, I am a storyteller. And one of the things that I love about lyricists and storytellers or the griots within the hip hop community is they are able to manifest the thing even when it was not, right? The Black experience is about a kind of fugitivity, right? A kind of escape. And we're allowed to escape and reimagine ourselves continually within the music space. Atlanta, or just Georgia in general, used to be called terminal, right? All spaces, all trains had to end here and then come back out. That has not changed. The world has to come here through the airport and go back out. And so it will continually be a global community, right? And we have touched the globe. We have touched the universe through music. And I think to hop, skip, and jump over that would be problematic, right? So you think about the core of hip hop is James Brown, who is a Georgia native, right? So you can't get to hip hop without James. And so there are a lot of ways in which our narrative or the experience of Atlanta has reached the world, but the major has been through music. Long live Andre 3000.
So in your more spiritual works, such as La Pieta, The First Station of the Cross, and Lamentation, You highlight themes of sacrifice, selflessness, grief, gratitude, and veneration. How do these themes resonate with you and our experiences as Black women?
I'm from the Bible Belt, and there's a lot that comes with that. But my major has been the lack therein of seeing the celebration of Black women in spirituality in the South. And so if you do research, and again, if you travel, you see a mode of matriarchy that happens in all other societies except this one, right? Where women are celebrated, where matriarchy is not a problem. And we see that in so many avenues in the world, which include the political landscape, where we're still struggling to have a woman president, right? And so growing up, religious iconography did not look like Black women. And I greatly desired to see that. My mother is a minister. I come from a family of pastors, teachers, and military people. And so seeing my mother be present in the pulpit but not honored proved to be difficult for me. It relayed a language of, I understood my first language of spirituality and God through Black women, and yet Black women were not celebrated, right? And so when we're looking at, what may be considered a kind of amalgamation between Black women and deer or bull, or Black women in a position of Christ, I am just looking for ways to see the thing I did not see. And to not see Black women's bodies as problematic in spiritual spaces.
And this leads into my next question. And so with that struggle and those experiences, how have you kind of found the balance between Western Christianity and also West African traditions within your work?
Yeah, I think that may be a little flat for me. I think that oh, y'all can't hear me? Oh, that does sound different. Mic check. I think that, lost my thought. Okay, going back. So I think that spirituality began in Africa. That's the first thing. And this introduction of Christianity that is in the West, in a lot of ways, is a bastardized version, right, of Christianity. But when you're looking at my work, it is not just about Mary, Martha, Magdalene, Jesus, Orishas, and Vishnu. It is all the things, right? And so I'm not looking for ways to flatten, but I'm looking for ways to borrow from each culture in order to realize this Black woman spirituality that I have within my work, right? So not a one-dimensional space where I'm balancing between one or the other, but a celebration of all and a celebration of Black women from all points of view. Yeah.
So your work also deals with a more speculative side. Can you talk about the type of literature that you read that kind of taps into that and your concept of world building?
Oh my goodness, all things Octavia Butler, all things Toni Morrison, magical realism. Those women, just those two lead the way. Just those two usher you into reimagining space. You can talk about poets, you can talk about artists, but I think those two, with Toni Morrison, she rewrote the narrative of the Black historical experience. And then Octavia pushed us into the future of what is possible, right? Octavia was a prophetess, right? The very experiences that we are currently having right now, she wrote, right? Parable of the Sower, for those of you who are celebratory of Octavia. These are two brilliant women that showed us that we don't have to have a stagnant history or a stagnant narrative, and that it does not have to be under the guise or under the gaze of Western society. So that's just two. That's just two.
Okay.
And like the speculative, one more thing. So like the speculative tells you what's possible. The speculative asks what if, right? And the speculative gives you permission to step into a different space, right? So when we're thinking about like Alma Thomas, like her, some of her earliest works and the pinnacle works that we see now are about her reaching towards space, right? About her thinking about a life outside of where we are, which I think is a continued experience of Black imagination is the language of the speculative, is the language of what if. Okay, I'll stop.
No, you're good. So in some of our conversations, you talked about how preparing and working on works for this exhibit has kind of pushed you into a different creative space. So what do you feel like it's pushing you towards now that these...
Sleep. It's pushing me towards sleep. You see all of this? You see all of this? This is some work.
Yes.
This is some work. So I have done a lot of exhibitions, but this has been probably my toughest exhibition. It's been the toughest one to kind of pull off and to think through. The initial proposal that I gave to Clark, this ain't what we were talking about initially. We were talking about like two totally different things, but I think I had sent Clark an email just, one, thanking her, because this exhibition pushed me into a space of the uncomfortable, right? It's challenging dealing with or trusting someone else with your vision. I had to trust Dr. Arshley. Dr. Arshley, are you in here? I had to trust Dr. Arshley with my baby, right? You don't give everybody, you don't give your baby to everybody, right? And so I had to trust him with that, and he killed it, right? This has been a continued collaborative thinking experience. This has been Clark holding me accountable. Right, because artists are hard to like pin down, and we're really unconventional beings who can procrastinate and only work when we feel like it. Like it has been, it has been a beautiful experience, but it's also been difficult. But one that I'm so very grateful for, because where I feel it pushing me to is that I don't have to solely focus on outcasts, right? That I can reach toward a new self, a new vision of the person that I am within my body of work. And I think the newer pieces, I'm interested in like really pushing where those are to go next. That's long.
All right. I think we're ready for questions.
Are we?
Does anyone have a question?
Are we passing the mic around?
We can,
Well, just so you can hear it.
yeah.
Okay.
They have to pass the mic, because this
Okay.
room swallows up your voice unless you're loud like that.
All right.
Anyone? No takers?
No reactions, no questions about what you see?
This is so odd.
Freddie had it.
There we go. Oh, wait, let me
Freddie is
take
the
this
first
one.
offering.
There we go.
In preparing for this exhibit, did you think about the history of this place, the annuals that started here by Hale Whipper and the murals and all that stuff?
Of course, that's the first thing that came to mind. Dr. Taylor told me I couldn't go all the way up, right? I wanted to take up all the space, right? Clark told me I couldn't have her sides of the walls. Like they were limiting me and pigeonholing me. But of course I'm thinking about the history. Of course. But then like Dr. Taylor said, I gave you, you're gonna take what I gave you, right? Of course I thought about the history of this place. I always think about the history of this place. When Spelman afforded me the opportunity to teach part-time, I continually bring the students over to this place. It is beautiful, it is historic, just the collection alone is amazing. To be able to have my work in the collection is amazing, but to be able to visualize my work in such an amazing historical space, yes, is the first thing. Like, to be able to plan this out in this space, considering the greats who walked through here, absolutely. It's probably like, if I could, which I have, wrote my dream of a space that I would like to take up, Clark Atlanta University has granted me that, yeah. Yes. Stand up and project.
You can come around this way. Yeah.
Peace. First of all, thank you for sharing your visions with us. It's highly appreciated. You use cars a lot in your work, and I've seen you take the old schools, even the one in the back here coming across. I've heard you say before, sometimes when your artists talk about the past and how people say you shouldn't just harp on what's happened over and over again. With old school cars, when I see them, they go all over the history. There's always something attached to it. What do you use in your work that can come from what we have, we look at as always the past, and why it needs to be represented more and more? What is it that you stick to so that you can see what your vision is for the future?
Are you referencing about the cars? Why do I stick with the cars?
Yes.
Right.
It's one thing that you stick with that I see all the time.
Right. It's symbology, right? So my father is probably the baddest black man that ever lived. And that looks like my father taking 20 minutes to turn a curve in his 1977 Bonneville, right? My father owned, like, we were a car family, and so my father owned all these cars. And one of the things that's familiar for the black community, if you've ever stepped in one of these cars and been in it with a black man playing music, or yourself, you are transported, right, to another space. These are spaceships, as far as I'm concerned. I don't care how much newer cars try to replicate the future. The future to me looks like old school Chevys. The future to me looks like Oldsmobiles. The future to me looks like, like just Fifth Avenues and a Cutlass. Like, it looks like these cars, right? They are steady, they are immovable, right? They also represent black ownership. They also represent the feminine. Most black men reference these cars as females, right? So they are strong, they are a altar. They're a beautiful representation of the old school South, and to me, what a potential future looks like. And so I continually reference this as symbology in my work. Yes, as Atlanta, yes, as the South, but also a portal and a representation of the future. Where did you go? Is that helpful? Yeah, okay. You're welcome.
If you want to ask a question, why don't you move forward this way so we can catch you on the mic? As they come up, can you talk a little bit about the multiple mediums you decide to use? I've been fascinated about your use of technology and printing on plates and wallpaper and just all the mediums. I'm waiting for you to make a sculpture.
Ooh. Short answer, I think I'm undiagnosed ADHD, right? But long answer, similar to what I was talking with Clark about, I am really interested in using various materials as metaphors, right? Like I was talking about the hair as a metaphor of longevity and impossibility, talking about the quilt as a representation of the layers and the multi-dimensions of being Southern. Speaking in these different languages allows me to say in a myriad of ways how amazing the South is, to be able to focus on this region. Again, growing up, I very rarely, even more so now, very rarely do you see bodies of work that focus on the Black South. And if you do, we have to be slaves. We have to be out in the fields, right? And, you know, what is it? Sue Ross says that the West End is the United States of Black people, right? Right? And so the West End, or just all of Atlanta, is a representation of the diaspora and the fact that it is not monolithic. And so how do I use medium as a metaphor to talk about how amazing the South is? Yeah. Is that helpful? Along with plates and... Okay. Hi.
So I wanted to, since Black children specifically in many households are told that art is no use, like it's a hobby, it makes no money, there's not much to it. I want to know what you would say to them.
You said that in most households? Did you say Black households or just art?
Parents are like, there's no money, you gotta pick something else, you gotta do something else. What would you say to them too?
I think it's important to pursue your passion. You know, a good friend, Vanna, we were corresponding the other day, and there is research that shows that most kids start being educated out of the arts around about the age of 10. That education teaches you it has no value, right? And yet, when you think about the most dynamic thinkers, they are creatives. And I think the issue with the arts is that, you know, people think the arts means painting, just that, like drawing and painting. But you cannot sit in these chairs without an artist. An artist built this space. You understand what I'm saying? An artist built the mics that we have on in our hands, right? So creativity is a necessity. It is not something that is lacking. It is not something that you need to question about yourself. And a lot of times your parents are telling you this because they want you to be able to survive, right? Because we are in a capitalistic culture. And so it is thought that you cannot feed yourself on your art. I can tell you that's not true. But I'm also not going to tell you it ain't hard, right? It's both and, but it's also worth it, right? And so if it is your true passion, is your true desire, I say pursue it without inhibition, right? Again, your parents are supposed to tell you the things to protect you, right? So you think about, we're in a different age right now, right? So when you think about the 30-year job, that no longer exists, right? So the jobs that our parents told us to take on that would keep us safe no longer exist, right? You're lucky if you're on a job for at least 5 years, right? And so you're not just competing with what used to be you were competing with maybe your neighbor, and then you were competing internationally, but now you're competing internationally along with AI. And you know, one of the things my son was talking about the other day, AI works backwards. It's not working forward. It is working to eliminate human jobs. It's working backwards, right? It's figuring out what we have here in the future and then doubling down. And so how do you compete with that? The only thing that can compete with AI is creativity. It is unlimited. It is an unlimited resource, right? And so I say push toward that. And if you need to know anything else, you shoot me an email.
Hello, Jen.
Hello.
Thank you for this. This is absolutely astonishing.
Thank
to see
you.
Your graphic spoken work. And
Thank
I
you.
have a lot of questions, but I'm going to keep it to just two.
Okay.
One to be my family. So my family is really interested in some of the visual elements that you present in a lot of your work. The mythology, kind of sort of the blending, the combination of the animal and the human. And we are both really, really taken by this indigo. Explain or maybe share with us what is it about the blue, the indigo, that we ought to know about?
I think I was saying earlier that the indigo is or just blue is a representation of spiritual protection, right? It is also the language of Ashe, right? Right, so the language of the spirit, the thing that keeps us, the thing that covers us, right? So within my newer works, you see that there's indigo mud cloth surrounding it, protection. There's indigo here, protection. There's indigo here, protection. Is covering. It's just a language of covering for me, right? So it's me stepping outside of maybe covering solely through prayer, right? But covering through symbology and color. Does that help? Yeah. Okay. And then what else did you ask me about? Animals. Y'all be mad at me about these animals. All right. So the vulture, the deer, the bull, the raven. The deer represents elegance, right? So these are characteristics of the women in my family, right? Right. So as I was sharing earlier, my first understanding of God came from these women, right? And so deer representations of elegance, beauty, and agility. Bull representations of strength, power. Raven, one of the most intelligent birds, right? So a representation of intellect, and vulture are the carrion. They're always having to clean up the mess, right? And then when you're looking at these geometric shapes, these are representations of the multiplicities of Black women's spirituality. You're welcome. Hello?
I just want, I don't really have a question.
Oh.
I just have a comment. I want to let you know. As a Black man, as a minister, as a Southerner, to see your art and your talents is so awe-inspiring to me.
Thank you.
You just bring back so much good memories that I have of growing up, in the South, around my mother and my grandmother, strong Black women. Mm-hmm. And I know this country is like a culture society trying to erase our history. Mm-hmm. But I just want to let you know that I'm so awestruck by your talents.
Thank you.
By your perseverance, and the fact that, that Black women, strong Black women should be celebrated instead of feared. As a Black man, a strong Black man, I do not fear strong Black women. It's an honor to be in the presence of strong Black women. I grew up around strong Black women. And it's not makes me look weaker or as a Black man, but it's us and our community and women that have been the backbone of our development, our upbringing, everything that we are. You represent that well. And I just thank you, and I just want these people in the world to know that we appreciate your talent. We appreciate you opening yourself up and giving us what you see inside that God has placed inside of you. And it's just bringing so much peace and joy and happiness to so many people. And our voices and our experiences are being heard, being seen, and viewed. So stay strong, sister, and just keep on doing what you do, because it's bringing so much joy to us and to this world. You may not see it right now, you may not get all the truth and the accolades that you deserve, because I think you are one of the very best talented persons in this world. So I sat on the sidelines and watched things with my wife and your dear family, and I just want to thank you for your boldness and standing strong and firm in your beliefs.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
My question to you is, I guess, when did you know it was art or nothing? Like, what do you think happened? And you were like, you know what, I'd rather die if I can't do art.
There are a couple of areas in my life. Now, I'm an artist, so I quit once a week, right? This is it. I don't want to do this no more. It's honest. But there are a couple of areas in my life. So one, my know that I know that I know, right? I had a friend of mine hold me accountable, right? I had a friend of mine take me to lunch. And, you know, at the time, I want to be able to pay my bills, right? And so I was doing like crafty things, like showing at festivals, making greeting cards, you know, just have your little, put your foot in the water. And so I had a friend take me to lunch, Felice Martin, and she said, how long are you going to just be a crafter, right? She said, how long are you just going to halfway have your foot in the water of the thing that you're called to do, right? And she said, how do you know that you're not holding up somebody else's blessing by not being the person that you're supposed to be? And that made me feel like, oh, it felt heavy. It felt like she put something heavy on my shoulders. And then she also gave me the charge to create a business plan, right? Now, this is back in the day business plan. This is the early 2000s, 50 pages business plan, not the one pager that we have now, right? And so that took weeks and months on end, because I was like, is she kidding me? Like a business plan? But as soon as I wrote the business plan, I had all type of doors fly open, right? Because you're writing the thing down. Like Erica say, write it down, all right? Watch it get real. My other was losing my youngest sibling, my brother, right? So for a while, I had stopped doing art, period, because my brother had passed transition. And so for about 3 or 4 years, I didn't do art. And so what you're saying is, how do I know that it was either art or die? Because I was trying to die, right? So you have, survivors, survivors.